So we're going to be working on this text portrait poster. I wanted to make more of a streamlined video showing the steps. So basically you are needing a face and you really want to get as much face as possible. So if somebody's looking off to the side, their hair or a hat, something that they're wearing might cover up their face. So you want to get something that shows a lot of face. So normally if somebody's facing you, that's probably your best bet. You also need a quote, something that they said or something that means something to the actual subject. So when you're finding your subject, you want to keep the web search simple. Just type in one word, maybe two. So I'm just going to find Beyonce's picture and I go to images, not all, go to images, tools, size, large, so every picture will be high resolution. You may luck out and find a good face picture, but if you find something where it has their whole body or something far away, you might want to change the search and add the word, let's say portrait or face or head, something like that. So you can see your search is a little bit better, but don't forget tools, size, large. Go make sure you're finding a nice large high quality image. It's okay if the image is black and white or if it has color, it doesn't matter. Makes no difference at all. So I'm just going to find one that is nice and clear. Again, it does not have to be black and white. Best thing, if you find one where it looks like it was taken in a studio, those are going to be your better quality pictures with lighting and everything. Something if it's outdoors or on a stage, it might be a bit blurred. So as you look around, find something that works for you. I think I'm going to go back to that. Go to this one. Right click, open image in new tab. So when you go to the new tab, you have it right here. You're going to right click, save image as. So if you have a spot on your desktop already, like if you have something called text portrait, if not, you can make yourself your folder, and that's where you could put this. I tend to rename them so I can find them easily. Okay. When you're finding your quote, you can either just write it down, you could take a screenshot, it doesn't really matter. So if this is what I want, I'm literally going to take a screenshot and I'm just going to have that available, and I'm going to move that screenshot over to my poster folder. Okay? So the next step, we're going to be opening up the image in Photoshop. We're going to do two things in this video, maybe three. Got to see how it goes. We are going to remove the background and we're also going to desaturate it. So you go to open. Let's open up the picture. Now if your version of Photoshop has the 2024 version, if you head over to the Move tool, you should have right below here a Remove Background. And what you can do is you can just hit Remove Background, and it actually does all the work for you where it puts a mask on it, and it does a pretty good job depending on the picture. Now, if it didn't do well, like towards the bottom or around the head, it's not really a big deal because we are going to be really coming real close to that image. We're not going to see the edge of the hair or anything. So if it's a little bit off, that's okay. But if you do not have that Remove Background button, you can always go to the Magic Wand tool, and up here you have Select Subject and Select and Mask. So if you hit Select Subject, sorry about that, so we're going to hit Select Subject. So you can see it puts marching ants around there, and then you can hit Select and Mask. And this is a window that opens Properties. It's just asking you to do any refinements. We're not going to do any at this point. It's pretty complicated. It's just at the bottom you go to Output Settings. Okay, so if you scroll down, you might need to scroll. So the Output Settings, you have Output To, and you want to output it as a layer mask. Okay, so it's back to where we were before if you had that Remove Background. So the end result is where you have the mask and you have the image. We're going to click on the image and we are going to desaturate it. So the fast version is a shortcut, but I'll show you where it is. If you go to Image, adjustments, and it's right down here, Desaturate. Shift Command U is the shortcut. Okay, so we desaturated it. It's at this point we're going to mess with the levels. We're going to do a third thing after all in this video. This part we're going to mess with the levels. We want to get rid of a lot of the grayscale, but we want to have more black and white. So we are going to make it more contrasty. To do this, you go to Image again, Adjustments, and the shortcut here is Command L for levels. You, again, kind of complicated. We're just going to focus on this little topographical map looking thing. We're going to work with these 3 points here, and if you drag the one to the right, or the one to the left to the right, you can see it's going to darken everything, and the one to the left, or to the right, bring it to the left, it's going to highlight everything. So you want to bring these in because you want to create some real black areas for your shadows, and you want to create some real light areas for your highlights. Almost white, pretty much white, pretty much black. So you can see on the tip of her nose and on her cheeks, she's getting that white. And on her face here, her eyes. And you can also adjust slightly the middle part. So you just want to make it more contrasty. All right. So if I hit this preview button, you can see this is what it was before. And you can see it gets rid of a lot of the gray and makes it much more contrasty. So these numbers, I'm not going to give you specific. So the numbers here, I'm not giving you anything specific because depending on what your picture is, these numbers are going to vary. So that is the third step. Okay, so after you've made all of your adjustments for this image, we are now going to bring this image over to a new page. So we're going to go to File, New. And the size of the page, you're going to make it, if you set it to inches, it's going to be 12 by 16, 300 pixels per inch. Background content's black. If you prefer to set it to pixels, it's going to be 3600 pixels, 4800 pixels, and 300 pixels per inch. Okay, so we are going to take this picture using the Move tool. We're going to drag this up on top of the Untitled, bring it down. So it's okay if it's a bit smaller, and you're going to be stretching this out bigger. Now, to avoid it being squashed or stretched like this, you need to keep the proportion. So before you start changing the size, you want to make sure that this is checked. You can see right here the percentages are 2 different numbers. I'm going to set them to the same, setting them to 200. And then just lock that in so it will remain the right proportion. So you want this face to fill up the space because the only place you're going to get any words are going to be on the actual face. So if you end up keeping it small like this, this is the only place that your words are going to be. You want to make sure these words are pretty large. So good rule of thumb is to get the ears almost touching the edge. So something like this is good. I'm getting hers nice and centered as well. Okay, and now we're going to be making a rectangle on one of the sides, and that's where our words are going to go. So if you want the words to be on the right, that's where your rectangle is going to be. If you want it on the left, that's where it's going to be. We're going to add a new layer. We're going to use the rectangular marquee tool, and we're going to select 1/2 of the image. Now we want to know where that halfway point is. So before we get started with this, we're going to make a ruler. So you can go to View and go down to Rulers. The shortcuts Command R for rulers. When you get your ruler, it might be set to centimeters. You actually want it to be set to inches. So to change it, like I just did, you right click on either one of these rulers and you select inches. So you can see the 6-inch mark is the halfway point. So you're going to make a guide right down the middle. Put your cursor on top of your ruler and drag. And you're going to see this line come along. Drag it until it hits that line right next to 6. Okay? Now that blue guideline is never going to be seen. Like if we print this, you're never going to see it. But we're just going to use it temporarily. Now we're going to go back to layer 2, use the marquee, When you select the side, make sure it's the lighter side. This one, they're pretty much the same. I'm just going to go with the right side because I see it a little bit lighter. And I see a highlight over there. So when I drag my rectangle, you can see it'll kind of feel like it kind of sits right onto that guide. And now I'm going to use the paint bucket and I'm going to dump black into it. Pure black. Okay. I'm going to hit Command D to deselect. I'm also going to get rid of the guides. So you can go to View, Guides, and you can go to Clear Guides. So I don't need it anymore. Okay? So that's how we do this step. Okay. So now we're ready to put some text into this picture. So I'm going to go back to my desktop and I'm going to go to my text portrait. And I'm just going to open up the screenshot. And I can kind of leave it over to the side just to kind of have it open while I'm working. I'm going to go like this, just to kind of have it peeking through over here. All right. So when I'm working, I'm going to start typing using the type tool. So let's set up our type. Go to the type tool. Here's your font. I would suggest doing a font called Impact. I would also suggest to hit the caps locked button so you're writing in all capital letters. Regular's fine. I'm going to increase the size to about 150 for now. And I'm also going to change the color to white. Now I'm going to click right here up along the top, sort of where the hairline is, right up there. All right, so it just gave me some random words. So to start this, you're just going to start typing the words. I would say let's type one word per line. You can always make those modifications later. So while it's still just like this, I just clicked, I'm going to just start typing. And you can see it's going to change it. So here we go. It's okay. Now I can choose whether or not to add her name or not. I'm going to put a dash and I'm going to put Beyonce. Okay. Let's spell it correctly. There we go. So, oh, another spelling error. It's not about perfection, it's about perfect. Okay. Now, there is going to be a window I'd like you to open that's going to be really handy, and it's going to be located over here when you open it. Go to Window, go to Character. This has all the stuff that you're going to need. It's got all of these options here, and then it has some more that you're going to feel are going to be very, very necessary. I'm going to just grab the Move tool, and I'm going to just put it over here for the time being. It's too small. It's not the right orientation or anything like that. There's a lot of things I have to change about this, but I'm just moving it off to the side. I'm going to go to Paragraph, and Paragraph is going to allow me to change the alignment or the orientation. If your rectangle is off to the right, you're going to align the words to the left. If I had this on the right-hand side, my alignment is going to be like that. So you want these words to be right up along the edge there. Notice I don't have any spaces at the ends or the beginnings of these words either, so you want to double check that. So keep it here. Okay. I'm also going to stretch it out a little bit bigger. And it's going to be around this time that you actually want to take layer 2 and lower the opacity. So you can see exactly where you're going with this. So I want the top word to be here. I want the bottom word to be probably by the chin. Okay? So you can do a bunch of changes just using the Move tool. But then at some point you're going to get into some options over here, which is the next video. So once you have your letters all laid out, the next step is you're going to be deciding on how you want this poster to look. Now, one of the things you're going to be not having to decide on, which is one of the things that you're going to have to do, is that these words are going to be filling up this side of the face, just like here. And the lines of text are going to be really close together. So you might look at some of your writing and you might say that, you might have 2 short words that would probably be better if they were on one line, and you can make those decisions, you know, as you go along. Right now, I'm happy with having 8 lines of text, and I do realize that perfection is going to be squished. Its is going to be probably stretched out a bit. This its is probably going to be stretched out pretty wide, and that's okay. But one thing that I notice is that my lines of text are kind of like on top of each other. So you're going to focus on this window right here. I'm going to see if I can zoom into it. Okay. So with this here, you have, this is going to be the size of the text. This is going to be the space in between the letters, in between the lines. This is going to be the space in between letters. This is going to stretch it out wider. Okay? VA metrics is not going to make any difference. This one I don't use at all either. Now, if you jump over to paragraph, let me exit the drawing. When you jump over to paragraph, get it back. You are going to see that this is the alignment. There's this one right here. Let's see if I can zoom into it. Sorry. This one right here is going to allow your text to move back and forth on that line, and you're going to find that to be useful as well. So now, as you're working, you are going to first go to character, and I'm going to change the alignment. Now notice I'm not going on top of this window, I'm going right on top of the actual icon. And you can see that it's changing the space in between. Now I want it to be pretty tight. I don't want them overlapping. Pretty tight like that. But now you can see that I'm going to have to change the size of my text because now it's not fitting anymore. Okay. Now, as I do that, now I'm going to be ready to take each line of text and stretch them out. So it's going to be this one right here. So I'm going to make sure I'm on the type tool. I'm going to make sure I'm on the type tool, and I'm going to highlight the first word. I'm going to go to this T right here, stretch it. Now I'm going to go to not, and I'm going to stretch it. I'm going to go to about. Okay, so perfection is going to be squished the other way. Like that. Now you might see that the word it, since I stretched it out so much, right here there's a little bit too much space. I'm going to go back to paragraph. Remember this one? Watch when I drag it to the left and right. I can actually adjust it so it lines up. I think I'm going to take the word about and I'm going to stretch that one away a bit because it's almost overlapping. This up. I'm actually going to spread them apart a little bit right here. See how purpose is, that period is sort of overlapping. I mean, I can even just get rid of the period if I don't want it, which is fine. Yeah, I'm deciding to get rid of the period, so this will kind of show you can make those decisions later. So I'm going to merge them a little bit closer together again. Okay, and then also use the outside. Okay. So you want to try to get this so the letters are remaining on top of the face. Okay? Okay, so once you have all your letters laid out and your rectangle looks good, one of the other things that you might notice on yours, and you might not have it, but if you do have it, you might need to address it. You see on the left-hand side here, and you see some of these, this edge over here. It looks a little rough. It's got like a little bit of white stuff. And this had to do with when I was removing the background. I'm going to go to the mask, and I'm going to go with a fuzzy brush. And I'm going to smooth out. I'm going to lower the opacity a bit. I'm going to make it a fuzzy brush, lower the hardness. And I am going to just remove it, just to kind of smooth it out. So I'm actually more like clicking rather than dragging. And you can see how it's eliminating that hard edge. Okay, so however you want to get through it, and it's not affecting the actual image, it's affecting the mask. Oops, sorry about that. So I'm just kind of lightening it up. I'm going to bring the opacity back up a little bit. And I'm going to go along the edge here. And you can see how I'm dragging it on this side. And I'm just kind of refining that edge. I'm kind of blending it so it's a little fuzzy. It's not so extreme and harsh. Okay. So just so it doesn't stand out like a sharp line. Okay. So after that, I'm going to now cut out the letters from the rectangle. I'm going to bring the rectangle back up to 100%. I'm going to put my cursor right on top of this T right here. It's the thumbnail of the layer. And I'm going to hold down the command button, and you'll see you get a dotted square there. And I'm going to hit, just click on it. You can see it selected all of the letters. Now, if I wanted to, I can certainly do this a different way. If you remember from before, I'm on the type tool, or on the text layer, type layer. And if I use the magic wand tool and I uncheck contiguous, I can select all of the letters at the same time. Same idea. So I basically want all of the letters selected. It's at this point you want to check punctuation, you want to check, make sure it's the way you want it laid out. I'm going to go to layer 2 now, and I'm going to hit delete. Okay. And then I hit Command D to deselect, so you can see that the building blocks looks pretty good. All right. So it's at this point we're going to do some of the finishing touches. As you look at your image, you might find that it's a little bit difficult to read. So one of the things you can do, and it's got to be careful, it's kind of tricky, is that you can do sort of a dodge. You can lighten up some of the areas of the face. You got to be careful not to do it on the eye or the lips or in the nose, because it's kind of, you don't want this to look very, very lightened. Let me show you what it does. If I zoom into the nose, for example, and I go to this tool called Dodge Tool. So the Dodge Tool, make sure you're not on burn or sponge. The Dodge Tool will lighten up areas. The range is set to mid-tones. You can change it to shadows or highlights. The exposure is at 50%, and it has a very fuzzy brush. Now I'm just going to focus on the nose for a second, and I'm just going to click on it a bunch of times. You can see that it's lightening up the area. I'm going to undo the stuff I did there. I'm going to change it from mid-tones to shadows. And you might see that it might get a little bit more aggressive with like the dark part, like where the nostril is. So this is just something that you can absolutely use, but you got to use it sparingly. So if I come back here, you might notice that at the bottom of the E there, I may want to lighten it up, and it won't be really noticeable. So I'm going to go to the image, I'm going to go to the Dodge tool, and I'm just going to click it a couple of times. You can see that it lightens it up, maybe over here too. Another thing you can do, which is more advisable, is that you can go and you can put a glow around the inside of the letters. Now it's kind of tricky to do this. We actually have to take this text, and this is what we're going to be applying that glow to. Instead of lowering the opacity to make it invisible, we're going to lower the fill. And what that's going to do is it's going to, went to the wrong layer. Let's try that again. What it's going to do is it's going to make it invisible. but it's going to allow us to see any layer styles, blending options we apply. And what we're going to apply to the text, I'm going to right click, go to blending options. We're going to give it an inner glow. So if I click on inner glow and I adjust the opacity and the size and the stroke, those are the ones that you're going to adjust. Stroke will make the edge fuzzier or not as fuzzy. Size, of course, is pretty self-explanatory, so is opacity. So while you don't want to leave it like that, you probably want it to be really subtle. So I'm going to lower the size to just on the edge. And I'm also going to increase the choke almost to 100%, so the edge is really, really nice. And I'm going to like lower it. You know, I can keep it really, really bright, but I just want it to be really subtle. So you can see when I uncheck preview, it just gives it a little bit of a pop, so you can read the letters a little bit, but it doesn't mess with the look of the image. Now, it's not a necessary thing. If you look at yours and you're like, it looks perfectly fine like that, I can read everything, then you can leave it. But if you have something where if you want to add a little bit more visibility to those letters, add a little subtle outer glow. So, not to be confused, because if I go and I change if I bring the fill up to 100%, you're not going to see it because it's a white glow on a white letters. But if I lower the opacity, you can see that it's making everything invisible, including the layer style. So when you're working, you want to make sure you lower that fill. So the last step is one of these that in the past I've had it as an option, but I really like it a lot, so I actually want everybody to apply it. It really just gives it a sense of professionalism, and it finishes off this poster really, really nicely. And I'm going to go with a thin frame around the outside. So to do this, we're actually going to apply this whole making the fill 0%, and we're going to add some layer styles to an invisible layer. So to do this, we're going to add a new layer, and we're going to fill it with a color. It makes no difference what color it is. I'm just going to go with red because it's there. And I'm going to use the paint bucket, and I'm going to fill it in. Okay, I'm going to lower the fill because I don't need to see that. But what we're going to see is two blending styles. So or blending options or layer styles. I'm going to right click on that layer, and I'm going to go to blending options. The two that we're going to apply are stroke and inner glow again. So let's check inner glow. Let's work with that first. The blend mode, you can set it to screen. The opacity you can adjust. The color is going to be white. And if you can change the color too, I'll change the color later so you can see it. The choke is probably going to be up pretty high. I'm going to leave it at 100% right now, so it'll make it almost like a real solid line. And I'm going to increase the size so you can see it kind of comes in. So you don't want this to come in too close where it's going to overlap your letters. Actually, by having it that big, it looks pretty good. I kind of like it that wide, and I can make those adjustments in a little while. The other one I'm going to use is stroke, so I'm going to select stroke. This time, you want to make sure that your position is on the inside. Your blend mode, you want it set to screen. Okay? What that's going to do is it's going to cover up the white, but it's not going to cover up the picture underneath it. You'll see in a sec. The color is going to be black. So watch when I increase the size, you can see that it's covering up that frame. So you can make it really thin and classy like that. You can make it stand out a little bit, a little bolder. You can also go back to inner glow. You can change the choke so it makes it a little bit fuzzy. I have to make it much bigger. See if I go to the choke, you can see it fuzzes up the edge. So if you want it to be a fuzzy edge, you can do that. I like it to be just a hard edge. And I'm going to go to stroke, and I can shrink it up the way I want. You can also go back to inner glow if you want to lower the opacity and make it lighter like that. And to change the color, again on inner glow, maybe if I wanted to change it to like a golden color, I can do that. See that it changes the look of it. So like I said, I really like this option, and I would like you guys to take advantage of that. Like I said, it finishes it off pretty classy. just going to leave it white. And if that's the way you like it, then you can go ahead and save it. So if I lower this size of the inner glow, and change the size of the stroke, I want it to be a little bit thinner. Okay, so that is a done project. When you save it as a PSD. And I'm going to have you guys save it in preview. I know this makes it a little bit complicated. I'm going to go to Save As, and I'm going to save it as a Photoshop file in my text portrait. And because sometimes what happens with students, when you go ahead and save it as a PSD, save as copy, and JPEG, sometimes what happens is it messes with the blending options over here where it makes it wider. If that's the case, we'll take that case by case, we'll work through it. But that's a finished product. If you save it as a JPEG and it looks the way you want, you are good to go. Thank you.